guys, welcome back to my channel and another video. If you are new here, my name is Nicole and welcome. As you guys can see from the title, we are going to be doing another reading vlog today. It has been a little while since I've done a reading vlog on my channel, and I just thought with it being October, now would be the perfect time for me to try and get into Halloween. I am based in Australia, and Halloween, when I was growing up, was just not a thing. Yeah, so like the most I've ever done with Halloween is sort of decorating for it. I've never gotten into it. I've also never really sort of gotten into like reading Halloween-ish style stories, and I thought that now would be a great time to do a reading vlog of me sort of reading some cozy spooky books for this spooky season. And I would like to emphasize the cozy part. I am not going to be reading any books that are like scary, murder mysteries, horror, or thrillers. I am doing the cozy version of this, and by that I mean I'm just going to be reading books where the main characters happen to be witches. That is the extent of me dipping my toes into this spooky season. But essentially the books that I am planning on reading, first one I'm gonna pick up is Not Your Crush's Cauldron by April Asher. This is also on my October TBR. Another book that I'm also hoping to pick up is Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. It's just a cemetery and it's called Morbidly Yours. I just felt like this made sense. The other two books that I want to pick up are going to be ebooks. It's going to be The Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson, and then also The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. They just sound like they're going to be really fun rom-com witchy stories. I'm really excited to pick up these books. I'm going to get started straight with Not Your Crush's Cauldron, and I'll just touch base with you guys just to see my thoughts on these books. But I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will check in with you later. But I am currently doing, I guess, my first check-in. I'm 210 pages through Not Your Crush's Cauldron, so I've got about 110 pages left. I have read it over the last day or so. I am really thoroughly enjoying it. I love Olive and Bax. The reason why Olive started to do her Dare I Docket list was because she overheard some of her other faculty colleagues talking shit about her, essentially, that she had made this project for the college students in her class to step out of their comfort zone, and they were kind of mocking her for the fact that she's the last person who steps out of her comfort zone. And as a result of this Dare I Docket list, Bax has been assigned to be her guardian angel. Obviously, they both have feelings for one another, and they've started ticking off things in her Dare I Docket list. Their relationship has started to blossom. It's just gotten physical, and things are sort of just progressing through there. I'm loving it. It's really cute. It's funny. I'm having a good time with it, and I think it's probably going to be around like a 4-star read. But yeah, there's not really a whole lot that I want to say about this, except I'm really, really enjoying it and having a great time with it. I'm really glad that I've picked it up and I'm reading it this October. This is super cute. I'm gonna update you all a bit later on my thoughts. I'm currently reading Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. This one is another witchy kind of rom-com where our main character Essie lives in a house with all these other witches, and there's a new landlord, Josh. He discovers that they haven't paid their rent in like 300 years. He's trying to get them to pay rent. That's essentially the first 4 chapters, if that, because that's all I've currently kind of read. And I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not really loving like the writing style or the main characters, like the way it's written. I just can't get into their head, so I'm not super enjoying it, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like 40 pages in, if that, so it's a bit of an interesting one, but I'm on the fence as to whether I'm going to enjoy this one, but I'm thinking it's like going to be a max of 3.5 stars at this point. Purely because I feel really weird talking about a book and not holding it up. I don't know if this is lame or if it works, but what was I going to say? Hex Appeal. I'm about 70% of the way through. I've got less than 100 pages to go, and I'm liking it more than when I started it, but it's still a bit odd. I feel like the start of the book wasn't set up very well, or the way that the author went about setting up the world, just it didn't make sense to me. I didn't like it. I felt like there was a lot of information that was missing, and that I was actually more like starting on the second book in the series. Stuff's happening. We're starting to find out some things. We've traveled back in time, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it now that I'm saying it all, but I'm enjoying it more than I was, but I say that very loosely. The next time I check in, it'll probably be when I finish reading this. I have just finished Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. I don't really know what to say about it. I'm unsure on my rating. I'm kind of leaning towards 3 to 3.5 stars. It did get better the more I read it, and it got interesting towards the middle to end when there was a plot with the witch general or witch finder, but it was just very basic. There wasn't really, I don't want to say depth, but like there wasn't much that went into the plot or the story, and everything progressed very quickly and everything was tied up, and it was 269 pages, but there was no essence or depth to it. It sort of just happened and things were resolved really quickly, and I wanted better, more in-depth explanations of things. There's another 2 books in the series. From what I have worked out when I've looked through everything, is they're not related. It just focuses on different witches and different stories and stuff. So it's not like any of the witches that were part of this story come back, from what I can gather. Don't know if there's like any sort of other connections about the characters from this book appearing in the other books. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think I would pick them up. Wouldn't necessarily recommend this story just because it was a little all over the place. So I didn't really love it, but it was an interesting, quick, easy read. I'll probably update my reading journal tomorrow, but I'll show you guys some clips of that. But that is book 2 in this vlog down. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to start the X-Hex tonight or if I'm just going to start it tomorrow. But the X-Hex focuses on 2 main characters. I cannot remember the female main character's name, but I know the male main character is Reese. I do believe that they are both witches. Basically, they dated and then they broke up for whatever reason. So she decides to put a curse on him, and then he has to come back to their small town because he's the descendant of the founders of the town, and there's something going on with the ley lines, and he's got to do some magic spell on them or whatever to revive them. But because he's got the hex on him, it causes some issues in the town. That's all I know about it. I think it's going to be a second chance rom-com with some witchy themes. So we'll see what I think of it. And then depending how long it takes me to read this, we'll see if I'm going to read any other books in this vlog. I'm on day 2, I guess, or night 2 of reading the X-Hex. I'm currently 102 pages in and on chapter 14. I'm definitely enjoying it more than the previous book. It's a lot easier to read. The characters are more likable. The plot line is easier to follow and makes sense. But basically we have our main character Vivi and then also Reese. So what happened was when Vivi was 19 and Reese was 20, they started dating for 3 months, and then Reese randomly announced to her that he was heading back to Wales to end his betrothal. And Vivi understandably was really upset to learn that the guy that she'd been dating and sleeping with for the last 3 months was technically engaged. So they kind of ended things, and then she was really upset and heartbroken, and her cousin Gwen, they decided to curse him as a funny little joke and didn't actually think that they actually cursed him. Turns out they did, because 9 years later he's returning to the town. Basically the second he steps into the town, everything with his magic starts to go wrong. So he was cursed, but it never impacted him up until him returning to the town. They're just sort of working out how to get rid of the curse. I'm enjoying it, but I'm going to keep reading and just see what happens. Has it been several days since I've updated? Yes, that's my bad. But I have finished the X-Hex by Erin Sterling. I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it for the most part. However, there was something about the writing style and I just couldn't super get into it, which is fine. I'm not sure if I would read the rest of the series, but I did have a good time with it for the most part. I'll touch base more about my thoughts with it when I do my final check-in, but I had some issues with the plot. Mostly that it disappeared in the middle so that a love story could appear, and I just didn't love that. But I have actually picked up Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. This is one that came out in August or September. It's basically about our main character. I should know this, I'm currently reading it, Lark, and then Callum. Lark's husband passed away nearly 2 years ago. She decides to bail on Texas and move to Ireland, and she moves in next door to Callum, but he has a family business which is a funeral home / cemetery, and they strike up a bit of an interesting friendship. Callum's grandfather has also just passed away and put in the will that Callum will inherit the funeral home as long as he's married by his 35th birthday. So he's currently 34, so he's got a bit of a countdown on. She basically helps him date, but they actually end up sort of falling for one another. I'm also struggling with the writing in this one. It's just not super engaging for me. That's kind of the only thing I don't really like about it. At the moment, Lark and Callum basically have a bit of a friends with benefits situation going on, but I literally have about 100 pages left of it. So I guess the next time I touch base will be just to do a final check-in on all of the books that we've read in this vlog, but this is the fourth one I'm currently reading. So I have decided that we, are going to be cutting the vlog here. I have read pretty much all of the books that I did decide that I wanted to read. There was 4 of them. We're just going to discuss a bit more breakdown of my thoughts and feelings of the books that I did read in this vlog. So we're just gonna get straight into it. First book, in case anyone's forgotten, was Not Your Crush's Cauldron by April Asher. This was the favorite book that I read out of the 4. I did rate it 4 stars. It is the 3rd book in this series and focuses on Olive and Bax. Olive is a witch. She's youngest of 3 triplets. And then we have Bax, who is an angel, and he is a guardian angel. That is his job. So Olive works at a college and she makes this project, which is to push her students out of their comfort zone. And she overhears some of the other faculty staff essentially mocking her for doing this because she literally is very predictable, never steps out of her comfort zone. And so she decides, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone, and she makes a docket dare list. She also puts on some things that flags her with the guardian angels, and they decide that she needs someone to protect her. And so in steps Bax. He's given the assignment because he's not very good at his job, and it's kind of like a last ditch effort because his father is quite high up. They decide to give him this assignment to look after Olive, and decides that he has to help her complete the docket dare list. And in starts a little bit of a relationship between the two of them. They both have had crushes on one another prior to this book starting, and the relationship just blossoms. I had a great time with it. I thought it was really fun. I giggled a lot. I smiled a lot. I really loved Bax and Olive, and it was great to see Rose and Violet, who the first 2 novels focus on, and their partners Link and Damien kind of get involved in this one. And it was just a really fun, cute, witchy rom-com read for this spooky season, and I had a fantastic time with it. The next book that I read was Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. I will stick up a photo. I didn't enjoy this one, first of all. I rated it 3 stars. It was a bit of a disappointing read for me. We focus on Essie, who is a witch, and she lives in a household with other witches that no one really seems to know the ages of. And then in walks our other main male character, and that is Josh, and he has just inherited this property in England, and he also owns like a number of different houses in this town. And he discovers that there's this property that no one really knows anything about, but it looks like the people who live in it haven't paid rent in 300 years, but no one remembers this house. And it turns out that this house has had a spell put on it, which understandably is where Essie and all of the witches live, so that people like immediately forget about it. Essie and Josh kind of have a little bit of a relationship that starts to bloom. The problem is that he sort of does forget her because of the perception spell. I didn't really enjoy this. Like I said, I rated it 3 stars. I couldn't get into the writing style. I didn't care for the characters. And then we also had this random subplot that they went to a different period, and there's this witch hunter. And this was just some random subplot that I just didn't really appreciate. I felt like the storyline was all over the place. I didn't really enjoy it. There's like another 2 books in this series. At this stage, I have no interest in picking them up because I didn't enjoy the first one. Kind of all I really want to say about the Hex Appeal. And then the 3rd book I read was also an ebook, and this was The Hex X by Erin Sterling. I did rate this one 3.5 stars. I feel like it started out really, really good. So we focus on our main character, Vivi, and also Reese. So when they were 19 and 20, they dated when they were in college. They're both witches. Reese comes from a bit more of a more powerful family than Vivi does. Reese has a betrothal going on, and he and Vivi have this wonderful summer together, and he basically just stupidly tells her that he's got to go back home to cancel his betrothal. And she is horrified to learn that she's basically been sleeping with an engaged man, having a relationship with him when he's got, like, I guess a fiance or a betrothed. So she abruptly ends things, understandably, is heartbroken. So her and her cousin get drunk, and she accidentally curses him, but doesn't think it's legit, just thinks they're messing around. Until 9 years later, when Reese returns back to their town because he is a penhallow? Yeah, and at their founding town, they're one of the founders. His grandfather created the ley lines there. He's got to come back and do the spell just to rejuvenate them and make things all good. But the second he steps into town, everything goes wrong. And then when he tries to rejuvenate the ley lines, the magic backfires. And essentially, he and Vivi have to work together to try and break this curse. There's also this subplot of this ghost of this student who was a witch, who was into dark magic that died, and I wanted more of that subplot. I think that would have been more interesting, but it was barely explored and that disappointed me. But like the plot line fell off in the middle of the book, and then we picked it up in like the last 50 pages and resolved everything really quickly. And I didn't like that. It was a bit insta-lovey at times. Understandably, they've got a previous relationship that we're relying on, but the whole thing was just a little licky for me and I didn't buy it. I did give it 3.5 stars. There are another 2 books in the series which focus on Reese's brothers. I'm not convinced right now that I would pick them up. Maybe next year. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it lost me in the middle and then it all just resolved a little bit too quickly at the end for me to really appreciate it. And then the 4th and final book that I decided to read, Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. And I rated this one 3 stars, which I was also disappointed by this one a little bit. So we focus on our main character, Callum, and also Lark. Callum owns a funeral home. It's his family business, and his grandfather is the one that owned it. His grandfather has just passed away and puts in his will that in order for Callum to inherit and own the family business, he has to be married by his 35th birthday. And then we have our female main character, Lark. She's from America. I'm pretty sure it's Texas. Her husband passed away about a year and a half before the events of this novel. She's still grieving him. So she decides to pack up and move to Ireland. Actually moves in next door to the funeral home, and she didn't realize it was a funeral home. She thought it was like an Airbnb, so she's really horrified when she gets a parcel delivered to her place that was meant for them and their body bags. And so Lark takes it upon herself to help Callum find a woman. They start to develop feelings with one another and then decide that it would be a good idea to have a physical relationship and keep the friendship. And they just develop more and more feelings for one another, and Callum decides to propose to her because he wants to be with her. And I just struggled with the writing style on this one. It just felt heavy. It felt like a lot to read. I didn't really like Lark as a main character. I quite enjoyed Callum. I thought he was sweet, but Lark was just annoying. She just doesn't stop talking, and I think she's got like a little bit of like social anxiety or something, and so she just like keeps blurting out things because she can't stop herself. I didn't really enjoy it. I thought I would enjoy it a lot more than I did. I mean, but yeah, like this is a book that I'm probably not going to remember. So that was Morbidly Yours. So they were the 4 books that I did read in this vlog. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one here. I did also try to put in some different things to make it a little bit more interesting, but I will see you guys next week for another video. Bye!